Well, I think with Crucify, as a minister's daughter, yes, I'm going to go after the symbology that is associated with the Gospels. So there is a baptism reference, but there's also a purifying, because she is desperately trying to find her spirituality and break through some of these, well, the chains that religion can put on you with their judgments, their agendas. And yes, that is an Elizabeth I reference. As we know, her mother and her father had broken away from the Catholic Church and started the Anglican Church. So there is, going back in history to that place where there is a break, a fork in the road, historically. And I just love those references anyway. I always like a good historical female reference. I was a mom. I just had Natasha, which was an experience that I can't even describe to you. I think that for me, that was the missing piece to my puzzle. So I was looking around at what was going on at the time, and there was a lot of music that was happening that really had a malevolence to it. There was an anger, a malice towards women. And so I started thinking, well, you have a little girl and you bring her into this world. It's the early 21st century, and this is where we are in our gender war. So I decided to go to the men and to have them as the mothers, the mother creators. So I crawled in and I was their anima, the female side of their being, female side of the songs. And I was choosing the male songs that guys had listened to. I had a control group of men, and I was investigating what they listened to all these years. So I picked the male artists or bands that I thought had a song that could tell us the whole picture. Scarlet's Walk is really about a pilgrimage through America, trying to remember what this country was built on. Not the agendas of those that were in power at the time, or that are in power, or that ever are in power, but what's going on underneath. What about the people? What about the beliefs? What about the sacrifices? And so many of our, what would you call, our sacred vortexes in our country aren't necessarily talked about. So Scarlet is trying to reclaim that and to understand what this country that has just been bombed, what was another invasion that happened before? Because there was one, and it was us. It was our invasion of these people. And a lot of us are a hybrid, a mixture of both sides, the conqueror and the conquered. And so it runs in her blood. Scarlet is a thread. Scarlet is also a bloodline, and she's taking us through America as a creature, her bloodline. As you know, Scarlet's Walk came after September 11th. I too was here in New York City that day, and I chose to tour. A lot of people canceled. I chose to go out. I was supposed to go out 2 weeks later, and I did. And I'm glad I did, because it became a gathering place for a lot of people. As you well remember, a lot of venues were shut at that time, and it was very hard to get information. So in my mind, I was trying to have a meeting place where people with different information could come. And that's what the Strange Little Tour was about. I started writing Scarlet's Walk while I was out there observing people and their response to what was going on. And it seemed to me too that, hang on a minute, we have to reconnect to what America is. Let's go before the Europeans settled. We have a rich culture here. And a medicine woman came to visit me out on the road, and she talked to me. Well, the beekeeper was really in my mind, and still is in my mind, part two of Scarlet's Walk, but from the European side. So it was really looking from the other side of the ocean at where we are today. And to go back into their history, they didn't have the Native Americans, but they had the master bee shamans. And so I started immersing myself in that lore. Strangely enough, when you start investigating a subject, it really does lead you to all kinds of strange situations and people. And all of a sudden, there was this bee master at my door who had written a book. He was well known, but he had been told by some woman in Eastern Europe that she had heard that I was writing this. Well, my mother didn't even know I was writing this. So you tell me how she knew. She's some woman in the hills somewhere. She's a beekeeper herself, an old woman who doesn't even speak English. And yet she knew about this, and he didn't know me, but he made contact and said, we've been told that Tori's writing something about the bees. And I asked him about this. I said, this is really kind of freaky to me. How did you know about this? My mom doesn't even know what I'm writing. And he said, well, but there is a consciousness, don't you think? Don't you think that the bees are aware of what's going on? I loved that. I loved that nobody could explain how they knew something, that they're just not definitions. There is a primal world that goes on. And I was exploring that in The Beekeeper. Power of Orange Knickers, I think, I was starting to get saucy again, you can tell. I think if you're a mom and you're stripping, then you're closer to your orange knickers than if you're mom and you're just going to playgroup. Well, I wasn't stripping at the Spearmint Rhino Club. So therefore, when this song waltzed through the room, it was a little bit of a double shot of espresso for me. Female espresso. And you think, you know what? I've sort of missed this side of being a woman. It doesn't mean that you're not alive, and it doesn't mean that you've completely cut yourself off, but you do walk into, and anybody who's a parent maybe understands, you walk into another zone for a while, just trying to, this little critter. I mean, I've toured the world. How many times? How much decadence have I been a part of? And here, this little critter just turns everything upside down. So that you wake up one morning and realize, oh my God, I am part of the human race. It's all still there. And yet, you need to remind yourself how to be a woman again. And so I was looking in my little cabinet that day, and there they were. And I had to go fight some awful corporate battle that day with the music business. And I thought to myself, right, boys, you have no idea what's coming. And I took those orange Knickers and I put them on. And I will tell you, I won that battle. Big Wheel was written and recorded all in one day. It came the longest day of the year last year. And I woke up with it in my head. So while the whole compound was sleeping, I ran to the piano across the courtyard into the studio. By the time the guys had woken up, the song was completed and we recorded it that day. It seemed to me that it did belong to the redhead character for all kinds of reasons. One is because there is the mother reference, and she's the only one that's a mother of the girls. I think if guys can designate certain women as being a MILF, then certainly MILFs should be able to claim it themselves. I think that being a mother, being able to create life, sometimes it does get confusing when you can create this very pure life. It's a very pure experience giving birth, but in order to give birth, there has to be some hot sauce or it's not going to really happen.